So for today's video, I wanted to talk about spiritual identity theft and how the path of taking the low road can destroy your standing with God. You see, we live in an age where there's a lot of energetic deception that goes on. In an era when appearances often trump authenticity, when many people fall into a tragic pattern, this is where things are ripe for spiritual identity theft. We've heard of theft of social media profiles. We've heard of theft of credit cards and financial accounts. But there's also an energetic form of theft, which is just as terrible as all of these other things, if not even worse. Because what this tries to do is to take your connection to the divine away from you, because there are people out there who are not willing to live in the truth of humility and doing the work, that shadow work that often involves examining the painful parts of yourselves. People that learn true maturity and not the power of being superficial, but a spiritual toughness. These people are very toxic in terms of personas, and they degrade themselves for others. They feed their egos and they quietly lose favor with the divine who they claim to serve, but they don't serve the real divine. This is a crisis of the soul. We live in a time when appearances can mask the truth. People can curate their identities. They can posture as being enlightened. They can perform strength without substance. But beneath the mask, many are walking wounded, perhaps even what you would call non-player characters, people who are spiritually disconnected from their true selves. This disconnection left unhealed becomes a form of spiritual identity theft because it's self-inflicted and you're robbing yourself of your opportunity to live in divine authenticity. In the words of Carl Jung, true healing begins when we face the shadow. Yet this is the very work that many people want to avoid. Instead of looking within, instead of taking the path like Sophia of wisdom, who gives us a great example of someone who has struggled with many things but did the work and found her inner divinity once more, as we all can. We have to realize that toxic behavior comes from an unhealed inner child. Neglect, abandonment, verbal abuse, emotional invalidation. These can create a deep sense of unworthiness. Many people never learn to confront those scars. They mask them with aggression, arrogance, or superiority. Jung believed that if the shadow is not brought into the light, it will rule our lives and we will just call it the fate that we can't control. These wounded individuals will build personalities designed not around truth but around defense mechanisms. They will always say that the cards were stacked against them, that they couldn't avoid the tragic fates that they face every day. But it takes the time to do real shadow work because we don't come here to just live. We don't come here to just exist. We come here to learn for our souls to gain powerful lessons. And to gain powerful lessons, you have to face difficult things. But these people fear looking weak. They rob themselves the opportunity to become spiritually strong, to live in the purpose that they were sent here for. And so there's a battle within where people just refuse to see. And their toxic behavior is this unhealed inner child that is never reckoned with. They are scarred. The neglect, the abandonment, the invalidation, they survive by wearing masks. They become shapeshifters. They carry these wounds into adulthood. They appear confident, but beneath the surface is a fragile ego, desperate for validation. And any time that they feel a sense of shame, a sense of embarrassment, they retreat further within. Carl Jung wants us to confront these hidden parts of ourselves, confront the anger we repress, confront the sadness we deny, but we pretend that we're not. We pretend that we're happy. We pretend we're the life of the party. We pretend that life is a never-ending adventure of just all joy and fun and no real necessary steps taken to actually deal with the things that are within us that need healing. You have to take the time to heal. This is how you develop your spiritual strength. This is how you develop your spiritual power. You have a cosmetic illusion which you use as a mask, and you think that is strength, but it is not strength. Some of these people could be even Christian. They could quote scriptures, but they don't have to be. They could be other types. They could pretend to be spiritual. They may talk about, the heart chakra, and they may talk about hermeticism. They may talk about as above, so below. They can use all the lingo, but the question is are they using it authentically, or are they using it to mask what's really wrong with them inside? Keep in mind that we're all students on the journey, and I'm not better than anyone else. I have a lot of flaws, and I confront those flaws every day. But some people would rather steal the light of others. You see, when they see that others are further ahead in the game, they engage in spiritual vampirism. They drain others to mask their spiritual poverty because they won't do the work. And so you have to realize that performance and power and putting in that time, putting in that work, you have to be a creature of habit. Practice makes perfect. It's easy to adopt the right language, to post affirmations, to claim you know the mantras, and that they're somehow empowering you, but are they really? When you sit there and you listen to your favorite spiritualists, are you really absorbing what they're saying? Or are you just being like, that's very deep? You're engaging in spiritual avoidance. You haven't really done the inner work. And those people will even go and they'll become people with their own channels. They will try to lead others, but are they really leading others? Some people become a cult of personality. People follow them because they seem cool. They seem great, right? And the toxic masculinity and femininity that people permeate are, being for the guys the bad boys and being for the women the mean girls. But it isn't strong and it isn't empowered. People just don't want to seem unworthy. They don't want to seem embarrassed. They don't want others to look at them as if there's something to be pitied, something to be looked down on. So they use projection as a survival mechanism. Their criticisms are often confessions. When they self-aggrandize, it's really because they're self-deprecating inside. And so they judge others' light because it exposes their darkness. And in this game of survival, they drift further and further away from the divine truth. There's a spiritual economy of power, and victimization and weaponization is used as a strategy. What would Mother Sophia think, right? When she's seeing all this go down, she would not approve of this because she would understand that we all have lessons to learn. We all have healing that we need to do. And we can't live a life forged in deception and paying a heavy price. Now, she's not going to judge you and look down on you for doing that, right? She's wanting to call you to confront it. She wants you to carry yourself with dignity. She wants you to carry yourself with humility. She wants you to carry yourself with truth. And so she wants you to stop stealing the powers of others through manipulation. She doesn't want you to violate others. She wants you to understand that you can't steal a crown. You have to earn it. And so these folks who pretend to be greater or mightier than thou, they can become gullible in their own right. Because their egos are so malnourished, they crave validation. And those people who know how to take advantage of that kind of person can come in and be the toxic leader and ask them to join their malicious group and engage in spiritual witch hunts where they're all pointing their fingers at someone else, someone who actually is doing the work. Why? Because it triggers them. It triggers their inner wounded child that has yet to be healed. They trigger people like us because our growth triggers the fact that they realize they're steeped in stagnation. You haven't really wronged them, but they'll say you did. Your elevation reminds them that they're living a counterfeit life, that they're living a life of fraud, and they're attacking you to say that you're the fraud. Everyone has some sort of ranking, and this ranking is not something to put anyone down. It's just to reflect how much work you've done. And so those who actually have the higher rankings, who walk with integrity, who pass the tests and elevate, they want to drag you down because it's like the crabs in a barrel syndrome. They want you to be subordinate because you make them realize what they should be, what they could be, what they want to be, but they're not. And because they're not, they're going to belittle you. They're going to mock your path. They're going to twist your words. They're going to dominate your spirit because it makes them feel that much more powerful. It makes them feel less insecure. And so you don't want to feed into that. You don't want to fight back. You don't want to become the person who gets down to the mud with them. You don't want to touch their poison soul, because when they manipulate and they degrade and they create all of this confusion, they're just incurring more karmic debts. They're failing their tests, and their tests will have to be rescheduled. They become spiritual parasites, and entities will be drawn to them because they're going to be like, perfect, I found the right target. So, even worse so, they might even try to transfer these entities and these spiritual burdens to you. They want to offload that karmic weight onto you. They want to dim your aura. They are not understanding the road that they must travel. And you have to protect your life, and you have to avoid their soul poison. Don't take the drink from them, the drink that's laced with alcohol, but you don't know what else it's laced with as well. And so you have to understand that they want to steal your identity and swap it for theirs, because theirs makes them feel small. They want you to shrink. They want to grow. They want to thrive, and they want you to suffer. But you continue to rise because you are following the wise teachings of Mother Sophia. You are made in the image of the divine. You're not weak. You're not stupid. You're not disposable. You know you're here on assignment. You know that others' wounds don't define your worth. You're reclaiming your name. You're reclaiming your purpose. You're reclaiming your destiny. You know that rise or fall, the choice belongs to each and every one of us. And so the world is full of people who claim to walk the path, but are hiding in plain sight. They're parasites. They're energy vampires. They project their insecurities. They disguise their bitterness. They may even be liked by people. They'll have some sort of charm to them, but it's all a spiritual trick. And spiritual identity theft is very real. And don't let them steal your name. Don't let them steal your power. Don't let them steal your legacy. Don't let them drag you into their karmic mess as they try to take away your crown and give you a false one. You must take the high road, even if you have to walk it alone. Because in the end, God sees the heart, and those who walk in truth will never lose their standing with the divine. So don't fall for the insecurity masquerading as superiority. And trust me, they will look tough and they will seem tough, but it's all an act. And they might even be magnetic, as I've pointed out, because they're so good at camouflaging. They're so good at masquerading. And they use their condescension to project. They want to call others weak because they fear that anyone that looks at them will see what's behind the mask. And so they've given up too soon. And they don't know how to work hard because they don't want to. They would rather take the shortcut. And so there are enablers around them who feed into their foolishness. And they're not aware. But they can feel the dissonance. They can recognize their own masks. And they can recoil from them. But then they sink further into them. And so this economy of power, this economy of weaponization to create victimhood out of people like you and I, it just furthers their disconnection from the divine. And they're going to cry foul when you hold them accountable. They want you to lash out at them. They want you to look like the bad guy. They want you to be the one who seems like you're engaging in the smear campaigns, like you're sabotaging people, like you're spiritually immature. They want to rob you of your dignity. They want to siphon your spiritual energy for themselves. They know they're parasitic, but they don't want anyone to ever figure that out. Your growth threatens their dominance. Your integrity challenges their manipulations. Your light exposes their darkness. And that they are gullible, that they're easily manipulated, and they fear the light because they haven't done the inner work. If they would only listen to our good Mother Sophia, our Mother God, who understands what it is to make mistakes. Sophia wasn't perfect either, but Sophia rose to become the very best because Sophia tackled her wounds head on. Sophia tackled her problems head on. She didn't take any shortcuts. She is quite the person who understands that you have to confront yourself and be spiritually authentic, be emotionally authentic, nurture all parts of yourself. Don't fear anything. Be loving to yourself. And so the problem is these folks who do not follow the ways of our good, wise teacher, Mother Sophia, they walk a path of ego and avoid responsibility. We walk in truth. We endure our trials. We emerge wiser. We are stepping into our divine path while they are being drawn to things which are dark, which are not the way. And they want you to surrender your crown to them. They want you to be confused. They want to throw chaos into your world. And so you must not allow this parasitic manipulation to hold any weight. You must avoid their envy. You must avoid their cruelty. You must avoid the entities that attach to them, the spiritual dark forces that feed on the chaos, because it poisons the soul slowly. And if you continue to consort with these people, you'll be infected by it too. So you have to avoid the spiritual deterioration. You have to avoid the paranoia, the bitterness, and eventually the spiritual collapse. You are a better person because you know that work is work. It's nothing that has shortcuts to it. Now, I'm not saying you can't work smart instead of working hard. What I am saying is when you avoid the work altogether and all you do is distract yourself, then you're avoiding your destiny. And so you have a sacred identity. We all do. God gives it to each and every one of us. Mother Sophia is there rooting for us. And so you have to ask yourself, who is trying to dim my light? Who is trying to make me question my worth? Who is trying to thrive when I suffer? Who do I need to disengage from? Who do I need to release? Because for you to return to your divine self, you need to stay away from those people who need the validation, those people who need you to become small so they can become powerful. You're not a victim. You're a vessel of the Most High. You choose the high road, even when it's lonely. The path of truth is never easy, and it requires sometimes tuning out when the world screams, because you will grow when others settle. You will forgive when others are vengeful. This is the road to Mother Sophia. This is the road to God. And so every day, you're invited to keep your soul protected from deception. Keep your resolve unwavering and don't settle for less. What you protect today becomes your legacy tomorrow. You walk in truth. You stand in light. And you know that as you take the high road, even if alone, heaven is walking with you every step of the way. So this is the battle within. This is the shadow that many refuse to see, but you're not like that. You are on that process of self-examination. You know that, like Carl Jung, that we have to seek that which we repress, that we have to nurture those wounds that fester. You know that masks can become prisons, and so you don't hide anything. You understand that your feelings of abandonment, your feelings of insecurity, that you can overcome those things. You don't have to be the bad boy. You don't have to be the mean girl. You see Sophia's reflection clearly. You see the lantern of compassion. You see, Sophia is our divine wisdom, and she sees the unhealed child behind every facade. She descends into each soul's dark garden with a lantern of compassion gently lighting the way on each thorn of pain. And she says, to heal, you must look with love, not fear. Her gnosis invites us to transform the shadow into light. And Buddhism identifies this ignorance, this attachment, this aversion as roots of suffering. These poisons, they cloud the mind and they fuel shadow behaviors. Through mindfulness and meditation, you can confront and integrate those forces in a very balanced way. In Hinduism, samskaras and atma vichara show us the way. Samskaras are mental imprints from past actions. They reside in the chitta, the mind field, and they drive unconscious behavior. In Jnana Yoga, the path of self-inquiry, you can purify those samskaras and you can reconnect the soul to its divine essence, known as the Atman. You seek performance over a hungering for power. Many will perform enlightenment as a ritual, but are they embodying it? Many will quote sages, but are they truly being vulnerable? This cosmetic spirituality is hollow, and you need to be radically self-honest and self-aware. Sophia's reflection teaches us that in the Temple of Mirrors, where a soul cloaked in robes, you see this priestess. And the priestess is tearing down the illusions, and she's revealing the child within. Because she says, you need not dress yourself in a costume, but you need to look into the mirror of your own soul. And the Dhammapada says, as a beautiful flower without fragrance, so are fine words without deeds. The true scent of spirituality comes from inner cultivation, not external aesthetics. And in Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita warns against tamasic practices, those rooted in delusion and ego. When ritual becomes egoistic display, it loses sanctity and binds the soul deeper into the karma we're trying to avoid. We want dharma. We want the good path. You avoid the insecurity masking the superiority, because when people attack others to elevate themselves, we know that that's just a sign of spiritual poverty. We know that projection becomes a weaponization of choice. And we know rather than confront this, we avoid it because we know to heal our inner selves. So those who don't, they're avoiding doing the work. Sophia teaches us that you don't have to rule to be worthy. You don't have to sit on a throne of lies. Sophia will place her hand on your chest and say, let love rebuild what fear once destroyed. Conceit is one of the 10 fetters in Buddhism. The spiritually immature project their inadequacies onto others to maintain the illusion. Awareness cuts through this deception. Sophia gives us the sword to cut through that deception. And even in Rajasic and Tamasic ego, Hindu psychology teaches us that you don't want to be restless. You don't want to be aggressive and prideful. The Tamasic ego is dark, degrading, and destructive. And both stem from ahamkara and block the path to moksha, which is our path of liberation. So you have to flip this power on its head. You don't need to play victim and try to do what they do to gain control. The manipulators harm people while crying foul. They weaponize sympathy and truth, trying to get people to turn on you and to see them in the best light. Sophia teaches us about the unraveling cloak in this matter. Sophia meets a soul cloaked in grief, but as Sophia watches, the cloak unravels into lies, manipulations, and false stories. You wear the pain of others to mask your power game, Sophia says, but truth will always expose what illusion tries to hide. And so Sophia teaches us to look through the lies and use our spirit of discernment to not be fooled. Mara, the deceiver, uses distortion over force. He tempts with misperceptions. The awakened resist by staying anchored in mindfulness and truth. This is where in Hinduism we have Durga versus Mahisasura. Durga slays the demon Mahisasura, who shapeshifts to deceive. Like Durga, we must discern truth through divine wisdom and intuition and avoid emotional manipulation. This is not a time to be fearful of light. When spiritually unhealed people see someone standing in truth, they may feel envy, discomfort, jealousy, and rage. The light exposes what they refuse to see in themselves. They are triggered. So Sophia teaches us to reflect on the Tower of Mots. Sophia enters a dark tower where many follow a false flame. Her true light fills the space, but the people recoil. A child approaches and says, "You feel real." Sophia, our mother God, responds, "Let others fear. You came here for truth." This is where in Buddhism we have Kalama Sutta. Do not follow teachings out of tradition or charisma or even dogma. Follow only what brings clarity and liberation. In Hinduism, this is where Arjuna and Krishna have their divine forms. Arjuna trembles before Krishna's true form, a vision of absolute light. Truth can be terrifying, but it purifies. And so within the spiritual hierarchy, we must take the path of responsibility, not superiority. Spiritual elevation isn't about being better. It's about being entrusted with more responsibility. But envy and jealousy seeks to corrupt this order by pulling down what it cannot reach. And so Sophia, reflecting on this, talks about the scale of light. At the gate of stars, Sophia weighs two souls. One is loud and boisterous, and it claims to have so much knowledge. The other is quiet but glowing. It is not the noise of your words, she says, but the weight of your light. And so she knows that the boisterous one was phony all along. In Buddhism, we have the razor's edge. We must avoid the ego traps. We must avoid being an egoist. And we must have more humility. It's not to say not to know your worth, but you don't need to flaunt it in everyone's face. Arrogance defiles that which is sacred. Those who act from ego accumulate karma. Worse, they attach dark entities and parasitic energy. And when you tolerate their behavior, the karmic burden may transfer onto you. You attract what you are. So the more you heal, the less you attract these people who are flawed, these people who have not found the way. One day they might. We can pray for them. But for now, we need to avoid them because they poison all that they touch. Sophia says, love does not require self-destruction. Discernment is protection. Stay away from that which claims to love you but wants to destroy you. Karma is not punishment with consequence. Awareness of intention and action purifies the chain. In Hinduism, we have the idea of papakarma and tejas loss. Papakarma is sinful actions, and it diminishes tejas, which is our inner radius, or inner radiance, so to speak. Our detachment will restore our spiritual strength, and we can return to our sacred identity by remembering who we are, that we're a spark of the divine creation. We are Elohim. We're not those who engage in gossip, slander, and illusion. We choose to reclaim our spiritual power. We choose to walk proudly as Elohim, a reflection of God, of the divine. On the mountain summit, Sophia crowns the soul with stars. Is it mine, he asks. It always was, Sophia replies. You just forgot your name. We have the Bodhisattva vow, which is that you need to return to your sacred role. You need to awaken yourself and others with compassion, truth, and clarity. You need to engage in the Tat Vam Asi. You are that. You are divine. Knowing this truth is moksha. And so in conclusion, you must rise, you must reclaim, and you must remember. The low road is crowded, it is seductive, it is paved with ego. The high road is steep, often lonely, but it is sacred. Mother Sophia wants you to know it's not how loud you are, but how true you are. Mother Sophia waits at the threshold of every turning point. She does not shame, she reminds. She does not force, she invites. In every moment, she offers you the mirror of gnosis. Do you remember who you are? She came to remind us. Now rise, reclaim your crown, and never again let another soul steal your name from the Most High God. Remember your divinity, and don't let anyone engage in spiritual identity theft. And if I don't see you, just remember, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.